Hi everyone, it's Penny Corkum here from Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm a psychologist and a professor at Dalhousie University. I'm going to be the presenter for this Facebook Live event. As you know, we're going to be talking about sleep and the importance of sleep in children, particularly children with neurodevelopmental disorders. And I'm also going to introduce you to our upcoming study, Better Nights, Better Days for Children with Neurodevelopmental Disorders. And this is a intervention that parents can access to help them help their children sleep. And so we thought we'd give this webinar for two reasons. One is to introduce you to Better Nights, Better Days. And the second reason is in recognition of World Sleep Day, actually today. So there's talks going on around the world about the importance of sleep. We thought this would be a really great opportunity to talk about sleep, raise awareness about sleep, particularly for children with neurodevelopmental disorders. I thought I would videotape this welcome because I can't actually show the person presenting and the PowerPoint slides on Facebook Live. So you have to do one or the other. So I pre-recorded this welcome and embedded it in the slides because we will just be showing the slides for the rest of the talk. At the end, you'll have an opportunity to ask questions, and I'll answer those through the audio function, but I won't be coming back in video at any point. So I just wanted to connect so you can put a face to the voice and welcome you this way. And now I'm going to move on to the slides. And I hope that you find the information that I shared to be informative, both about sleep as well as about thank you very much for joining in, and we'll talk at the end, and I'll be happy to answer questions. Okay, so now you know the voice behind the slides. So as I had mentioned, it's World Sleep Day today, and we've been doing activities to support World Sleep Day since 2012, and always try to give a talk or a webinar or something like that, just to really raise the awareness of sleep and the importance of sleep for all people, not just children, but people of all ages. And if you want to see what else is going on around the world, you could go to www.worldsleep.org, and you can see that there's talks pretty well in every continent and many countries around the world. So it's kind of exciting to see so many people working to raise the awareness of the importance of sleep. And so what I wanted to talk about this evening is what Better Nights, Better Days is and why you might be interested in this. Oops. Okay, so we're really focusing in on children with neurodevelopmental disorders, and I'll describe that in a few minutes. But basically, children with neurodevelopmental disorders just means that there's some differences in development for these children. So we're talking about disorders such as ADHD or autism spectrum disorder, cerebral palsy, and fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Those are the four neurodevelopmental disorders that we're focused on for Better Nights, Better Days, NDD. But there's many other neurodevelopmental disorders. We just selected those four as a starting point to see if we could develop an intervention that would be appropriate and effective for children with those four different diagnoses. And so many children with neurodevelopmental disorders or NDD have sleep problems. And of those sleep problems, there could be lots of different ones. There could be sleep apnea or periodic limb movement disorders. But the most common is insomnia. And insomnia is pretty straightforward to describe. It's difficulties resisting bed at bedtime, trouble falling asleep, night awakenings, and waking too early in the morning. The child doesn't have to have all of these symptoms, but some of these symptoms in order to be diagnosed with insomnia. The important thing to remember is that there is this bidirectional relationship between sleep and neurodevelopmental disorders. So neurodevelopmental disorders can impact sleep behavior. So, for example, if a child has attention problems or is restless, it may be hard for them to settle down to sleep at night. Or if a child has hypersensitivities and they have a hard time getting comfortable, or if they have pain, these all might make it difficult for the child to fall asleep. And a child who doesn't sleep well, that can actually impact their neurodevelopmental disorder symptoms. So it can make their attention problems um, more severe, or could increase their pain levels. So we see this back and forth relationship between neurodevelopmental disorders and sleep. And that's why we think it's really important to intervene and to help these children sleep better so that it can also help their daytime functioning. So, in terms of how do we treat insomnia, there's actually really good evidence for more behaviorally based treatments. And by this, I mean more psychological treatments or behavioral treatments, not medication. And we know that for many children, these work for both typically developing children as well as for children with neurodevelopmental disorders. It may be a bit more complex with children with NDD, but they still can actually work. The sad part is that while many of the kids have sleep problems and we know what works, very few actually receive the treatments they need. One study said that less than 1% of children receive behaviorally based treatment, and more often they'll actually be prescribed medication, which actually doesn't have kind of the data behind it in terms of effectiveness and side effects. So we really want to try to change the situation so that children receive the behavioral strategies first. Um, for some children, they may need medication, but we really should start with these behavioral strategies. And most children will respond to these. So why are we in this situation where we know what works, but we actually, it's not available? Well, there's a few reasons for that. One is that I think until, say, in the last 5 or 10 years, we really didn't have a solid understanding of how important sleep was for daytime functioning. There's a growing body of research that shows that poor sleep or lack of sleep can really affect how a person functions during the daytime, how well they pay attention, how well they remember information, how well they can regulate their emotions, how well they can make friends. So all of these things are affected by sleep. And so I think there's a growing awareness. So World Sleep Day is a really great example. And I think now more and more people understand the importance, and people are seeking out the treatments and the interventions. However, the second problem we really haven't solved too much, which is that there's very limited training in this area in pediatric sleep for healthcare providers. So most healthcare providers receive very little training about how to help children sleep better. If you don't receive the training, you may not ask the question. So sometimes, they're really not seeking, they're not asking the questions, and parents may not tell their healthcare providers because they feel like, I should be able to handle this myself. So we have a bit of a situation where people aren't asking, does your child have sleep problems, because they may not know how to respond to that or have the resources to help the parents. And the last, and I think probably the most important one, is there's really lack of services and resources and tools. So if a healthcare provider does ask a parent, or a parent mentions it to a healthcare provider, up until now there was really very few places that the healthcare provider could refer the parent for some support. So this is what our group is doing. We're trying to develop more resources and tools and interventions to help parents help their children sleep better. So with this in mind, we developed an online internet intervention called Better Nights, Better Days. And this was for parents of children who are typically developing, so the children do not have a neurodevelopmental disorder. And we developed this internet intervention over kind of a long time and tested it in lots of ways. It was a group of sleep experts from across Canada, and we developed a 5-session program. So the first session was sleep information. So the parents just learned about sleep and why it's important. The second session was about healthy sleep practices. So what can we do in our environment to help us sleep better? The third session were behavioral strategies to help the child settle to sleep, so to fall asleep. and not resist sleep. And then the fourth session was going back to sleep, so for night wakings or early morning awakenings. And then the last session was looking back and ahead. So looking back at the success the parent was experiencing with their child sleeping better and planning for any setbacks that might come in the future. And we developed this program, and then we conducted a randomized control trial, which basically means that we recruited families from across Canada. We ended up with 533 families. Some of these were parents of children with toddlers or preschoolers or school-age children. They were from across all of Canada, so we made sure we had at least 100 parents in each kind of geographical region in Canada. And we also had representation of both English and French-speaking families. And we then randomized them into either getting the intervention, Better Nights, Better Days, or on a wait list or what we call usual care. So they could seek out other supports, but they didn't have access to Better Nights, Better Days. And we wanted to test whether Better Nights, Better Days improved children's sleep and whether it helped them with their daytime functioning and also maybe help the parents with their sleep and daytime functioning. We ran that from September 2016 to October 2018, so about 2 years. And we just are in the middle of cleaning up the data so that we can do data analyses. However, we did find some really positive feedback from the families. I'll give you a second to read through these, and I'll maybe read a few of them. But, these are a bit, I picked the ones that I thought really represented other comments as well. So there, many parents would have said similar things. And we still have to analyze the data, but definitely the qualitative feedback from parents was very positive. So things like the fact that it works, my child actually sleeps. So the question had been, what did you like about Better Nights, Better Days? They found the instructions clear, made a difference in terms of quality of sleep. They found the information well organized, the content good and practical. They thought that it was good to have options and different ways to handle the situations, and that there's never only one thing to try. They like the sort of program nature, so building a program, each lesson built on the last lesson, and it wasn't overwhelming. And again, I think some of the other ones are similar to what I just said, but very comprehensive, non-judgmental, and mixed medium. So there's videos as well as written text. So what we decided to do was to take our Better Nights, Better Days program and modify it for parents of children with neurodevelopmental disorders. So Better Nights, Better Days was funded through CIHR, Canadian Institutes of Health Research. And then we got funding to modify it for children with neurodevelopmental disorders from Kids Brain Health Network. And that's what we've been doing for the last while, is modifying the program so we know that parents of children with NDD will find it helpful. So how did we go about that? Well, we didn't just kind of guess at it. We thought we'd take a very systematic approach, and we conducted 4 studies to help us know what to change and what to add, what to take away, how to modify it. First was a systematic review of the literature. So we saw what other studies had found, other studies of sleep intervention for insomnia with children with neurodevelopmental disorders. We collected that information. Then we went and we did a Delphi study. This basically is like a round of interviews or a round of data collection with experts in sleep and asking them how they thought we needed to modify Better Nights, Better Days and what kind of suggestions they would have for modification. Then we also ran focus groups. We ran focus groups with parents as well as what we call stakeholders, so other people who would have important input, so healthcare providers, some educators, etc. So they told us what they felt the program needed in order to be successful. And finally, we had parents complete the Better Nights, Better Days program and tell us what didn't work for them and what did work for them. So we took all this information and analyzed it to kind of help us decide what to do. And what we found across those 4 studies was first, e-health, or this online intervention, seemed to like it would be a good approach for parents of children with neurodevelopmental disorders, particularly because it's often quite challenging to raise children with NDDs, very busy, lots of extra appointments, and having an e-health program would allow parents to access the information wherever they are, whenever they had the time to do that. So that seems to be a good fit. Generally, the research showed that behavioral interventions are effective and needed. So parents are looking for these interventions, and we know that they can be effective. The research said we need to include psychoeducation, which basically means knowledge, healthy sleep practices, and behavioral strategies. So really the same sort of interventions that were included in the first version of Better Nights, Better Days. However, the intervention needed to be able to also address complexity in symptoms and causes, and to be more able to be individualized to meet the needs of children with NDD. However, some of the same strategies should work. The experts thought so, and the parents reported that they had success, but we'd have to modify them for kind of generally as well as for specific neurodevelopmental disorders. But all in all, what we really found from these 4 studies is a transdiagnostic intervention is possible. And what we mean by that is that there are interventions and strategies that cut across different disorders that can be effective, but also we do need some diagnostic specific information. So it's kind of a balance between having one program for every different group of kids versus having one program that can be used across lots of different groups of children, but having some individualized information. So we started, when we started to modify and build Better Nights, Better Days, we started with our original intervention. So when we started to make it for NDD, that is. And so first of all, we have a platform that a parent can access anywhere that they want. So they can get it on a computer or a laptop, on a cell phone, a smartphone. So it's responsive design. It kind of formats based on the type of access you're looking at it through, so whether that's a smartphone or a computer. And then we built in some kind of consistency. So this is Ashley, and Ashley acts as a coach in a way, or a guide through the intervention. So Ashley is both a live person in video as well as a cartoon in some of the animated videos, and so she kind of guides the parents through the intervention. We have lots of animated videos, and this is really how we share most of the information. It's quite dynamic and engaging. But we also have what we call expert videos. So this video here is Dr. Shelley Weiss, who is a pediatric neurologist at Sick Kids Hospital and the co-principal investigator of Better Nights, Better Days for children with neurodevelopmental disorders. And so we asked different experts to provide short videos to share about strategies or information that would be relevant for children with neurodevelopmental disorders. We also had activities and text. So in this, try to make it dynamic. So here a parent would read the text, but each of those bubbles, if you can see them, they could click on that and get additional information. We have activities like goal setting activities, so parents can pick what they want to work on. We have drag and drop activities, so you can build a sleep schedule or a morning wake schedule. We have a sleep diary that parents can complete about their children's sleep, and then it will graph how the child's sleeping, so you can see those improvements. And then we have 3 other components at the end of each of the sessions. One is a session plan. And so after you go through the session, you're actually building an intervention plan, and it's captured, and then you can download that. So it will tell you what you're supposed to be doing over the next week or 2 weeks. There's also a button that you can download the information in text format if you wanted to review it or share it with a partner or a grandparent who might be involved in helping your child sleep better. And then the last component is called roadblocks. And basically, roadblocks are ways to help parents problem solve maybe some barriers. So if a strategy is not working well, they can go to the roadblock section and figure out what could I try differently. So we kept this core part of Better Nights, Better Days. Then we added in all the information we had learned from our 4 research studies. We brought that to 2 big team meetings with our Better Nights, Better Days NDD team. And this is comprised of people who are clinicians and researchers and experts in pediatric sleep. And we put our heads together for a number of days and we decided on all the components that additional information that needed to be added and how we might do that. So we added more videos of experts. We included parents who had gone through the intervention and gave us feedback. We included their advice. We included more information. We made some modifications and edits, revised our reward center. So this is where you could build a reward program. I'm just going to go through these in a little more detail. So we started with the core program, and then we added what we call cross-diagnostic information. So these would be strategies that should work across any child with a neurodevelopmental disorder. And then we added in symptom-specific information. So it may not be for all children with NDD, but if they share that symptom, so pain, for example, or sensitivities, or inattention, or anxiety. So these are symptoms that are often common in children with neurodevelopmental disorders. And then we added in diagnostic-specific information. And so again, we focused on those 4 neurodevelopmental disorders, ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and cerebral palsy. So I'm going to go through each level of these very briefly. So for the cross-diagnostic modifications, some of the things that we did is we are allowing parents longer to go through the program just because they have busier schedules, more demands on their time, so they just need a little more time to go through the Better Nights, Better Days program. We added in more support and encouragement in the program, more recognition of the challenges, and so you may not be able to work through it as quick, and that's okay. We added more information about things like melatonin and other sleep medications, and we made some modifications to the reward program so it'd be more appropriate for children with NDD. And the pictures here are just examples of some of the videos that we added. So the top left one is Carrie Brown, and she's talking about how the parents' health matters to this intervention as well. Again, in the middle is Dr. Shelley Weiss talking about melatonin, and the right side is Dr. Isabel Smith talking about reward programs for children with neurodevelopmental disorders. And the bottom 2 kind of rose-colored ones are 2 of our parents who shared information about how they use the program and what worked for them. In terms of symptom-specific modifications, we looked at things like anxiety, executive functioning or executive control problems, impulsivity. And so we added information about this. So again, far left is Dr. Sarah Shea talking about self-soothing. So for children who are anxious, sometimes it can be hard to soothe themselves back into a calm state to go to sleep. In the middle is Dr. Anna Hanlon-Dearman, who is talking about night wakings and sleep safety. So what if a child was wandering or trying to leave their room? And then the last one here again is a parent sharing some tips about how they made the strategy work. And sometimes there were symptoms that may not actually be cross-cutting. So we included those in the roadblock. So for example, restricted interest and focus. So we don't have necessarily videos about that, but we did include information in the roadblocks in case a child was experiencing those problems that were interfering with their sleep. And last but not least is the diagnostic specific modifications. So you'll see at the bottom, we have an OWL for each of the 4 disorders that we're focused on. And we sometimes had to provide specific information related to those specific disorders. And so for each one, there is a video about how sleep and that particular disorder are related. So why is it that children with, say, ADHD develop sleep problems at a greater rate than typically developing children? So there'd be a video about that for each of the disorders. And also there's a parent for each of the disorders talking about their experiences. So just before I move on to this slide, I think you can see that I kind of think of it like an onion. Maybe that's not a good analogy, but it's really layered. So we have a core, and then we layered on more information, including very specific information for certain diagnoses. The goal really is to evaluate the program and see if it works across different groups of children. So what are our next steps? Well, we have what we call Vanguard users that have started. So these are parents who are going through the program, parents of children with neurodevelopmental disorders, going through the program and letting us know if things are not working or if there's any problems. And we do that before we start a big trial, just to make sure that we've worked out the glitches. And so very soon we'll actually be recruiting into the Better Nights, Better Days NDD trial. And you'll see this website here, so ndd.betternightsbetterdays.ca. And if you can look at the top right-hand corner of the picture, you see, can I participate? So basically, parents just have to go to that website, click on can I participate, pop up for your email, and you put that in, and then we'll let you know when the trial's starting. So what are we going to do for this trial? First of all, we're going to recruit over 300 families and parents of children ages 4 to 10 with insomnia who have a diagnosis of those 4 different disorders, and they live in Canada. You're going to be asked to give us feedback about your child's sleep and progress, their daytime functioning at 3 different times. Baseline before starting the intervention, after 4 months with the intervention, and then after 8 months with the intervention. There are some questionnaires you have to fill in, so we do provide honorarium for parents for those assessment periods, so $25 for each one, so for a total of $75. At each of those 3 assessment periods, you have to complete a sleep diary. It's online, so you fill it in on your computer, and you have to do that for 7 nights. And your child has to wear something called an actigraph, and this is a wristwatch-like device that measures body movements, and it can measure whether I just reshared it. Can you see it now? Was this where it dropped? The slide here? Had I talked about it yet? Okay, thank you. Bye. Hi everyone, sorry about that. It's just talking to Sydney. I guess my for some reason the video stopped, so I'm going to just pick up where I left off. I only have one more slide left, so I hope I didn't lose you. So basically, I was saying there's 3 assessment periods. So before the intervention, we call baseline. Then after 4 months with the intervention, after 8 months, and at each of those periods, the parent has to fill in a sleep diary for 7 days. This is online, and so you can do it directly on your computer or your laptop, etc. Your child would have to wear an actigraph, and so this is a wristwatch-like device that measures sleep. So from that we can tell if the child was awake or asleep, how long it took them to fall asleep, if they had any night wakings, those sorts of things. And the parent also has to answer a series of questionnaires about the child's sleep, the child's daytime behavior, as well as their own sleep and daytime behavior, because our hope is that if we help the children sleep better, parents will also sleep better. And then for those families that have been randomized into the treatment group, they'll have access to Better Nights, Better Days for 8 months. So you won't, I know you can't see this, it's too small, but I just wanted to kind of quickly tell you the steps. So once we launch the study, you would be able to fill in some eligibility questionnaires to make sure it's a good fit between you and the program. And if it is, then you do the baseline. So what I just talked about, collecting those measures, the sleep diary, the actigraphy, and the questionnaires. And then if everything is still good, there'd be randomization. So 50% of the families would have the intervention, and 50% of the families would be in what we call usual care group. So this means you can go about what you usually do, but we don't give access to the intervention at that stage. Then we do a follow-up at 4 and 8 months. And then after the treatment group finishes with the intervention, then the usual care or the waitlist group would get the intervention. So ultimately, everybody gets it, but the usual care group has to wait till the end of the study to get the intervention. I just wanted to give a shout out to all the advisory team and collaborators and staff. So a lot of people have provided input and support and direction in the development of Better Nights, Better Days and the research behind it. And particularly Shelley Weiss, who's the co-principal investigator along with myself. So that just means we're the leads of this project, but really great team from across Canada of clinicians and researchers focused on children with neurodevelopmental disorders and sleep. And just in the top corner, so Sydney is the person who has been helping me tonight and making sure this is working. And she's the project coordinator for the Better Nights, Better Days NDD program. So she is one of the people that you would be communicating with if you were in the project. And also Esmat Begun, who deals with all that back-end data stuff, and our past postdoc, Gabby, who helped in the development. So lots of people interested in helping children with NDD sleep better. So if you need more information or want more information, you can find it at lots of different locations. So at our website, at Facebook. We also have other webinars that we've recorded, so you're welcome to watch those that provide a little more details about the sleep problems in children with neurodevelopmental disorders. We also have a Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest account. And you can also email Sydney at bnbd-ndd@dell.ca. So with that, that's the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. The way we're going to do this, because I can't actually see your questions, Sydney is going to, I'm going to call Sydney, and she's going to read out any questions, and then I'll answer them. Hi, any questions? Okay, we'll just wait a couple minutes. If anybody has a question, type it in. I'm happy to answer it. And if you don't get a chance to ask it now, you can always send an email to us and ask it that way. And maybe you could just, can you write a note and just say, it looks like the video